Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Jay Mays. Jay is a 20-year sales veteran, a comedy producer, and a recovering stand-up. He's produced live comedy events for some of the biggest names in entertainment, including Viacom, Soho House, and Live Nation. Jay is the co-founder of Pitch Lab, which combines lessons from sales and comedy to help professionals be more confident, engaging speakers. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate you having me.
So this is unfair because I know you've done your homework. If you weren't working in sales and comedy, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be a waiter serving tables.
Like a professional.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is it okay to say waiter? I guess when
server. Is it a server?
I don't know, but when you're a professional, maybe you're a server if it's TGI Fridays, but if you're a professional, you're a waiter.
That's true. Yeah.
Or wait staff.
Wait staff. I had a run right out of college. It was about $50 a person type restaurant. And I had it down to a science where I enjoyed it. I had jokes. And my secret technique to get 20% tip every time is when I presented the bill, I would also present my hand, palm up like this, and shake their hand as I'm handing them the thing, like, thanks a lot for coming in. And when I shook the hand, guaranteed, I always got 20%. There was something about touching or that connection, like I'm a human being. Boom.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So what were your go-to jokes?
Okay, so I had some good ones. So anytime someone said there's a crack in the glass, I would say, I'll be right back with a straw. That's just like as a joke. The other famous one I would do is if they asked, because we'd have bread with pats of butter. They said we'd need more butter. I'd put one butter pat in my hand. The other butter pat I'd put on a plate behind my hand.
Okay.
And I'd say, here's your butter. To hand them a pat of butter with my hand, like really gross. And then they'd look at it weird. And then I'd pull the plate out from my back. Just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would get a big laugh.
Yeah, of course. Did you see Dimitri Martin's got a new one on Netflix?
I haven't seen it. Netflix is pushing that one on me.
Yes.
Hardcore, but I haven't watched it.
I like him. He's like a cleaner, more accessible Ben Kronberg with his one-liners. But he ends with
hold on, that's super funny to me. I'm not sure that's gonna be funny to anyone else because I know Ben and you work with Ben.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Ben's one of my favorite comedians, but he's not always accessible to the mainstream. You know what I mean? But anyway, he has a joke. Dimitri Martin has a joke at the end of that special about a waiter touching food. And I was like, I've used that joke for years, babe.
Oh,
it's my joke.
That's funny. By the way, for the listeners, if this sounds really good, it's not because Jay and I are being really articulate, but I have new podcast gear.
And it is sweet.
It looks good, at least.
It does. It looks real fancy.
Why? Okay, so you're good. You'd be a good professional server, but there has to be more to it than just the fact that you'd be good at it.
I feel like I think everyone on the planet should wait tables at one point or another. And have you ever noticed when you sat down with someone in a meeting for the first time and you're at a restaurant, you could tell a lot about that person by how they treat the server or the waiter. Now you got me all messed up on the lingo. By the person taking care of you. But have you ever noticed you could tell a lot about a person by how dismissive they are, or if they're rude, or if they're welcoming, or just taking a second to thank you? I think that background or that foundation in waiting tables, knowing that each customer that sits down is your boss temporarily and how you're going to get paid, that provided a fantastic foundation for sales in a lot of ways. And I enjoyed the quick connections, right? Getting to know someone on a small level, taking care of someone, and then boom, that validation. I think that is that looking for validation has fueled me for many years in sales. It fueled me as a comedian, right? As a comedian, I got to get to this first laugh. Boom, I got the first laugh. Okay, I feel better. I feel valid. Like, you're almost always looking for some type of feedback, and you get it in serving, you get it in sales, you get it in comedy. As I get older, I try to not need that as much as a human being, this validation to give me my self-worth. But I think those things, when I look backwards, have really driven me in whatever it was I was doing.
I see. So I have a question as someone who, I mean, I've done service related work, but I've never waited tables. And in some ways, I think it's a little peculiar that I didn't, because I have worked hard to put myself through college, and it probably would have been a more lucrative path.
Correct. There is a beautiful upside at times in being a server. I mean,
hard work, but if you're good and you get the right job, and it can really be, you can make some money. Now, I have this belief in I have this saying is, be a professional. So I use it all the time, and I use it with myself, and I use it with my students, and I think that there is something about approaching a job, whether it be as a teacher or as a salesperson. By the way, you have this in spades.
Thank
you. I'll tell the audience why in a little bit. But even if you're a barista or a bartender, is this idea that actually when you up the level of professionalism associated with work, it can become a craft. And there's something about turning work into a craft that suddenly can make the work intrinsically rewarding, where it's not just the 20% tip that feels good, but that idea that, like, boy, I did a nice job today, and I was creative, I solved problems, I found a new way to do this that makes both my life better and my customer's life better. So this is a long lead up for when I sense that there's not a level of professionalism, because I worry about being that person who's a jerk to a server who has a hard job. Yeah. Yet, to me, this is an exchange. Yep. I tip incredibly well. And so then I feel like when something is not right, I need to say something about it. Yep. In part because I want it to be right from my experience and my guest's experience. And then also, I know the restaurateur who owns the place wants it to be right. Yep. And so, but I don't always know a good way to do it right. How do you get the tone right? When do you do it? Do you do it in private? And these kinds of things, especially for places that I'm a regular at. Yep. So what is your advice for me and for anyone else who cares about that?
So as a customer, and I've never been asked this. This is really fascinating. I'm like, I'm in new territory here, Dr. McGraw. Okay. I would say acknowledging that we are still, no matter what, even though I'm bringing you water and your food and bread, we're still two human beings. Okay. And that could be done as simple as an eye contact and acknowledgement. So even if you and I were talking and the server came, thanks. Like, I see. It's the ignoring or the, like, you're not even
you're a servant.
You're not even a human being.
I see.
It's that, I think, is if you want to be a, I don't want to say good or cool.
No, I actually
if you want to be a customer,
I think that there's
it's just an acknowledgement that there's another human being here. When we all stand up and walk out of this restaurant, we're just three human beings, and to be treated like that, and not to put them in some old medieval role of servant or you're just someone like a robot could have brought me that water. That's what I would say is at the heart of what it is.
Yeah, and I asked this question because I actually believe the customers have a responsibility for a level of professionalism and for a level of decorum.
Sure.
And when I talk to businesses, I regularly, like when someone is struggling with a customer, one of my first questions is, can you fire that customer? Like, would it be okay? Because if the answer is no, that leads you down a certain path for problem solving. And if the answer is yes, it leads you down another path for problem solving. It doesn't mean just because you can fire them, you should. And so I think that as a customer, you should behave yourself in a way that is, right. So yeah, it's an interesting puzzle.
Can we go right back to the professionalism though?
Yes, please.
So I love early in my career when I was successful at organizations, people would say, what are you doing differently? And in my mind, I wasn't doing anything but basic blocking and tackling, following up, and being a man of my word. Right. And when you said that professionalism, it's what some would call professionalism is just basic. Like when you say you're going to do something, do it, make sure you follow up, make sure you're polite. Right. It's really interesting. Then when you say you take that professionalism to another level where it's a craft, it reminded me of, did you ever see the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
It's one of my favorites.
It was really, really, it affected me in a profound way. And that's what I was thinking of, the massaging of the eel for 8 hours. And like,
Right.
I mean, this is beyond sushi, man, you know? And like, you gotta, what does he say? You gotta be an apprentice for like 10 years before you could do anything but massage eels and like make rice. And
yeah, my favorite thing is they won't let the apprentice, the lowest person there, the first person, or the most recently hired, however it is, their first job is to prepare the hot towels.
there you go. There you go. I love it.
You have this hot, steaming hot towel. It's very painful, and you have to squeeze it.
Oh yeah.
If you don't squeeze it enough, then it's too damp. If you squeeze it too much, then it's too dry. And so it has to be perfect. And they won't even let you touch the food
For a decade.
so you can squeeze the towel perfectly.
Perfect.
But that's that craftsperson mindset.
Absolutely. And I love the story about he didn't want to scale. He didn't want to see there's what was it, like 4 or 10?
I think it's 10 seats.
Yeah, and that's
Or
it.
20 seats. I forget which one
But
it is.
today's mentality is more and more and more. Let's scale. Let's scale even if it hurts our quality, even if it hurts, our overall business. We got to scale. We got to scale. And to see someone say, I'm fine. I'm not going to scale. I'm not going to grow it, but I'm going to make it better and better. I mean, just fascinating. And then at the end to tie it into also, by the way, the stuff going on in the ocean, we're not even allowed, we don't even have the right amount of great premium seafood coming in to scale. I mean, just how he tied it all together, I thought was a great documentary.
It's really nice. And then the thing that I also like about it is that Jiro, though a master of his craft, is still a flawed human.
Oh yeah.
Sort of like a less than great husband.
Dad.
Less than great dad in some ways.
Yep.
And
I saw that.
yeah,
They did a really great job.
It's very, very nice. It gives you greater appreciation for sushi. This has come up a few times
Has it?
a couple times in the
I love it.
in the pod before.
How about the King of Kong? No, I'm kidding. Like we just start talking about great
Other good
the Donkey Kong.
documentaries.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Let's just keep. Hey, for the next 40 minutes, I want to talk about great documentaries, if that's okay.
So you've already sort of alluded to my next question. I also, not only do I have new gear, I have new questions. that I've prepped. So you talked about the Jiro's reluctance to scale. This is applicable to you because you have a new business.
Yep.
And one that we've talked about scaling and not, and
Yep.
right, because you have a business that requires, or you're not selling digital copies of things. So you're not making money while you sleep.
Thank you.
Right.
You articulated that perfectly.
And I'll try to describe this and then you can punch it
Yep.
up. So what Jay will do, at least one of the products that Jay has, is he will show up at your place of business, at your at your company, at your school, and bring along a comic and do a presentation / workshop around presentation skills.
Yep.
and providing insights from the world of stand-up comedy in particular, and other forms of comedy, improv, and so on, to help people deal with this thing that is incredibly challenging and fear-inducing. And you've actually done this with my MBAs prior to their marketing pitch. And so my question is, what are you saying no to these days?
Really good.
And why are you saying no if you are?
Thank you. I've needed someone to talk about this with. All right. So in the beginning of Pitch Lab, I thought I had this amazing, unique idea, and I was just out to prove that it was valuable and that I could do it. So in the beginning,
How'd you get the idea?
My background is I'm a 20-year sales guy, and then I am a 7-year stand-up comedian way back, like in 2005. I don't want to brag, but I was one of the biggest names in Denver unpaid comedy. If there was a free mic, I was there. I was either running it or at the mic. No. So I was never great. And I've talked about this at other points, but I had a very inauthentic persona doing comedy where I was out saying things that were blue or dirty or misogynistic or whatever, because it was getting laughs. But I never connected like the great comedians are very authentic. I was never able to connect like that. So there came a time in my life where I was like, I'm not doing it right. I'm not proud of it. I had I married my wife. I had a daughter. And then all of a sudden telling these dirty jokes at midnight in a dive bar it's not that funny anymore. So when I looked back, right around the time I turned 40, I looked back, I said, okay, I'm a sales guy and I'm a stand-up comedian and a comedy producer. What does the intersection of this look like? Right? What does the intersection of all that? And my first iteration of the idea was, I'm going to start an open mic for salespeople.
Okay.
That's it. Like the idea was I was going to literally run an open mic where comedians did not come, salespeople came and they just practiced their pitch. That was the first iteration. And I was like, okay, let's take it again. What if a comedian was giving them?
So what I like about this is it's a nice example of how what eventually might be a really good idea, that the first thought is not the right thought. Right.
And I love it. Your new presentation I just saw, learning business principles from comedy. That was very inspiring. The first thought, the second thought, the third thought. Yes.
Or sometimes the 1000th.
Sure. And I don't ever want to, I don't ever want to stop iterating on it. But yeah, so number one was an open mic for entrepreneurs and salespeople. Then it was, the next thought was, let's do fake pitches and have improv performers, stand-up comedians, and storytellers give you feedback. And then the third thought was, why don't I just grab some of these comedians and myself and let's build an interactive workshop where I'm giving them a lot more information, a lot more value, and then let's pepper in some exercises. So when you talk about scaling and what do I not want to do, I believe that the Pitch Lab experience is actually in that room, right? That little piece of fire you get, and I know you know this, when you give a great talk and you're done and you feel great, or a great comedy set and they laughed and it's just like, man, that was awesome. Or, all these different things where you can do a sales pitch, a comedy set, and you get off. That feeling of being alive is what I'm trying to recreate inside a Pitch Lab by way of comedy karaoke, by way of improv comedy exercises, by way of pitching fake things. It's not the full experience, but it's the start of an experience to say, here's what your favorite comedians are doing on stage. Here's the techniques you could use in the workplace, in your next pitch, in your next talk. And let's just practice just a little, just get like a little taste of it. And to me, that's something that needs to be, happening in a room together live, that human connection, more than here's a video to watch on YouTube about it. I feel like I haven't found the way to make that scalable.
Yeah, that's
digital.
Right. Digital, so you can sell it while you sleep.
So, and I'll just get back to your question. So what am I saying no to now? I'm finally through imposter syndrome.
Okay.
I'm through the imposter syndrome. I've gotten enough feedback. To know like this is valuable. I mean, again, not every workshop is amazing. Not every single person's life has changed, but we have something here. So now I'm less trying to let me just get out wherever I am. And how do I be more strategic? How do I make sure this Pitch Lab is helping me grow my business, or this Pitch Lab, we're getting some type of money to pay for the comedian, to pay for the time, and we're getting there. But it's the process of, I can't just keep doing it to spin my wheels to prove it to myself, because I proved it to myself. And I don't want to keep spending energy on things that aren't moving us forward.
Yeah, so I've came across Pitch Lab. I think you invited me to one.
I was a fan. I knew you from Twitter and I followed you and I checked out your book and I'm like, this guy's in Boulder. This is fantastic. And then I saw,
this guy's not supposed to be in Boulder.
He's
there supposed to be in some other place, but he happens to be in Boulder.
Swear. And after this, I want to ask you about the book and how that changed your career trajectory, because that's another thing I've been thinking about. But
Jay, remember, this is my podcast.
Oh, sorry. But you're so interesting. Do we talk about you on this podcast enough? Do we? So Ben Kronberg did something like throwing a Frisbee is the ultimate throwing shade.
Oh, yes. I know that. That tweet. I love that tweet.
Yeah. And you said that, and I was reading that and I was like, so the guy in Boulder that I want to meet knows Ben Kronberg, and Ben Kronberg is our guest coach. And so I believe I wrote to you on Twitter. What did I call you? Professors or what's your your formal title of what you?
A professor of marketing and psychology.
Yeah, but there was a fancier word. Anyway, whatever the fancy acumen word, name Peter.
Okay.
Get in free is what I tweeted at you.
Oh, I see.
So you had your name. I called you out on Twitter as like a boom, name Peter, get in free. And then you checked it out. I believe you missed the first one. We got you on the second Ben Kronberg one. And then, we went from there. But that was light. I didn't do a lot of stalking, but that was Twitter based, viewing. And then things just line up sometimes when you have your eye on something. It just lined up. So I decided to throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. And I'm sure I would have stumbled on it eventually, just given my interest. But you were doing, so you're not doing that anymore. So what that was you got some space at a accelerator or something like that, or shared co-working space. You put out a call. People paid $25 or something like that.
It was 30, thank you.
30 bucks. And one of my former students happened to be there. So you had, maybe 25 people or so show up. So that's nice because I call this battle testing.
Got it.
You put it out there in a world that has competitive forces that competing for lots of people. And if people are willing to turn over their money and their time for this thing that's not exactly clear, it suggests that they have a real problem. Mm-hmm. Too many businesses don't really solve problems. So you're not doing those anymore. So is that right?
No,
is that an
I still am. I still am.
Because that seems like a no to me, because it was a good way to work it out.
Well,
or first, using it as a funnel.
Marketing. You got it.
Okay.
So it's still marketing. But what the concept I want to talk about is too many entrepreneurs I see nowadays are like, I got my pencil sharpened. I have a perfect website. I have a proposal, but I'm not going to do anything until someone hires me.
Mm-hmm.
By going and introducing myself to a co-working space like Galvanize, right? Like the Commons. And then I'm going to put it out on Eventbrite. I'm going to just invite as many people as I can. I didn't need permission to start. Do you see how it was integral? Did I use that word? Integral?
Integral?
I shouldn't try fancy words in front of you. It was
essential.
Essential. It was totally necessary for me to get started. Like, I don't need your permission. I don't need you to validate me and pay me. I'm just going to go set this up. And even if 3 people are in the room, it's real.
It's very lean. It is the epitome of the lean methodology, which I actually like it a lot.
Yep.
And also so I have I've been working out all these lessons, as you know. And so one of them is thinking about failure and the model. So I think comedians have the perfect lean model. And that is that they fail all the time, but their failures have almost no negative effects on them. So they fail at the joke level in front of apathetic or sympathetic audiences. They never fail at the joke level for a special, right? So they use this methodology. And so to me, I saw the pitch lab at the co-working space as that kind of thing. Like, good news is you're never going to fail like a joke is going to fail. But you're going to work out some things. Some aspects of that event were stronger than others, and you learn from it, and you iterate and you improve it.
And I have totally, on a note, your feedback to me about authenticity. I have punched up that entire section. I have read books on. I mean, I took that to heart, and I feel like
what did I say?
So you just said your authenticity section isn't as clear as it could be. Yeah, and I've done a lot. You would be very proud.
Oh, that's nice.
Just examples, how it bleeds into.
If I remember correctly, it just felt a little theoretical. It felt a little vague.
But I've done a lot of great things, and I want to talk about one more thing about what I learned as my time as a stand-up comedian about failure. Exactly what you're talking about. Great stand-up comedians, or at least smart ones. I learned quickly the concept of bookending. So if I'm going to try new material, I'm still going to start with something super strong. I'm still going to close with something proven that's certain strong. And even when I'm going to try new material, I'm going to bookend it between something I'm going to get a laugh because I've gotten a laugh 4,000 times. I know this is going to work. I'll try this. And if this doesn't work, and even if it's a bomb, I got something behind it that I know. So it's and I still do that in Pitch Lab. So if I have new modules, I'm going to put it right in the middle where it's nice and cushy, which is very interesting. But I love what you said about being able to fail, being able to do it. Now, when you're first starting out in comedy, obviously you can't bookend with much, but over time, you're going to see the great comedians not necessarily start off with new stuff. I mean, certain comedians are going to do it, but it made me feel safer and more willing to take those risks.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think this will be helpful because right now Pitch Lab seems so what we know about Pitch Lab is that these are your audience are people who need some help with presentation skills. You have the sales background, you have this comedy background, you bring this funny person up who also has a comedy background.
Yep.
And you have lessons, and then you have exercises, and then you have that feedback mechanism built into this. So one of the things is you have joke karaoke. Is that what you call it?
Comedy karaoke.
Comedy cake, the K sound. Comedy karaoke. And so,
ooh, breaking it down, Dr. McGraw. That's right. Hard Ks are funnier.
In that one, you give people jokes, or you give them a choice of jokes. They get to choose a joke, and then they get up and perform someone else's joke as you would perform someone else's song at a karaoke club.
Perfect.
And you do that as a warm-up.
You got it. So it's an icebreaker. It's a fantastic icebreaker. And more importantly, it leads directly into stage fright. So when I get 5 or 6 people from the audience and all of a sudden, I just came here to learn something and now I'm standing in front of a room, you're getting that physiological reaction. And then I can go right into stage fright. But yes, so comedy karaoke is just like you explained. When you're doing music karaoke, you sing someone else's song. When you do comedy karaoke, I have one-liners from Stephen Wright, Dimitri Martin, of course, Mitch Hedberg, Rita Rudner, who's got some great ones. I tried to do Ben Kronberg, but nothing was clean or accessible enough. And if you're listening to this, Ben.
You know what I like about that is there's only 3 people in the world laughing at that joke, and 2 of them are in this room, and the other one's Ben.
There you go.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I really like what you're doing, obviously. All right. So when you said what you're saying no to sounded more like a more figurative no. Like you're not turning down work at this point.
No.
You're not in a place where you have that luxury.
No, I got bills to pay. Right. I'm scrappy unless it's totally outside my wheelhouse. I mean, I do refer some storytelling to
other people,
Pitch Lab, things that I know are truly outside, but no, I'm not gonna turn down anything paid. But again, what do I put my energy into for free, for top of the funnel, for marketing? Mm-hmm. That's changing, and that's changing almost on a daily basis. The other piece is, and I would love to ask your advice, do you feel differently about a free Pitch Lab versus paying $30 for a Pitch Lab? And do I have a better chance of continuing the relationship on a $30 Pitch Lab than a free Pitch Lab? I'm in my own head with it, but what is the best way to create a funnel when there's a perceived value of $30, but only 20 people show up, or a free one when there's 100 people in the room, but they don't feel like they paid anything for it?
It's a tough decision. I actually think, to me, well, you're the sales guy and I'm the marketing professor. So you have real experience and I just have.
But you have better experience.
So to me, I think the work should be done. Is that it's not a numbers game, right? It's a qualification game.
That's really good.
Right. So, so funnels are always about who are valuable customers. It's not just who's the customer who's interested, but what is the value of that customer? And so I can't help myself, but I like to think about other people's problems, and then I don't have to think about my own. But no, so I was giving this some thought. So here's what I like about Pitch Lab is it's fun, it's differentiated, it solves a real problem. And I probably should start with that one. It solves a real problem.
Thank you.
What I think the next level for Pitch Lab is a specialization. Pitch Lab for X.
Can I add just for 1 second? So when I first started Pitch Lab, I thought for sure it was going to be all dudes that were either budding entrepreneurs or salespeople.
Okay.
Like it was just going to be some, very similar to comedy, just mostly guys, salespeople, entrepreneurs.
These engineers who want to have a company, but they know that they need to be able to present like Steve Jobs.
No, not even them.
Okay.
I was expecting people that it's already their trade that just wanted to ratchet up their skill set.
I see.
Then, like you were talking about, when I started casting the net out, here's a free show, here's a $30 show, come one, come all, I skewed 60% female.
I noticed that.
And I skewed account managers, tech guys and gals that are up giving sprint demos or, want to be their own entrepreneurs one day. what amazed me is I started out more specialized and then opened it up because of what I saw. And I was like, wow, this is a real thing. There's people now, let's say in their mid 30s that never thought that they would ever get into sales that are now a subject matter expert riding along on a client pitch. Or I'm now in middle management. I have a team of 7 and I don't even want to stand up in front of them in my own conference room. And when I started seeing that, I was like, okay, now we're really onto something. But now I've shied away from specializing. I still love working with entrepreneurs. I still love working with salespeople because that's what's in my heart. But to see that many people say, I want to be more engaging. I want to make sure that my employees or my clients are paying attention to me and not their phones. Right. It threw me off. So I agree with you. But when the data came back, it actually hurt me.
I get it. But to me, the issue of specialization is just a segmentation question. Okay. And so then the issue is, what are the segments that have the need and believe that you are the right solution?
So it's not just picking one, it's making sure I'm segmenting.
I guess so. At some point, at some point. Here's the other idea. And then the free consulting ends.
I was going to say, are you going to send me an invoice for this? This is fantastic.
So I talk about this in my MBA class all the time, is you have a B2C idea, make it a B2B idea. The idea is what organizations see this as a need. They have deeper pockets. It's easier to sell it, and you can sell it to them over and over again. And so the B2B play for Pitch Lab, I think, is where you quit your day job.
Yes, sir. And I agree. And that's in my mind, which I haven't figured out how to turn it into reality. B2C is top of the funnel. They go back to HR, their boss. It becomes a B2B lead. And then by continuing to do these public events, that's my funnel for B2B. Yeah. I haven't cracked that. But one thing I do want to mention, because I've done B2B and I've done B2C, the interesting thing is...
Oh, wait, I have to interrupt because there's some people who might not know what the hell B2B and B2C is.
Okay.
I actually am assuming I have listeners by this time. So B2C is business to consumer. So that's like Coca-Cola selling to you,
yep.
And B2B is business to business. So that's like Coca-Cola selling to GE or vice versa.
Yep. And I'm a B2B guy at heart. So that's where I'm most comfortable as a salesperson. But what I wanted to say is the attendees in the workshop, when it's a public event, everyone has made an individual choice to be inside that room, and my engagement is high. I don't have to work very hard. Like, they're with me. I came here. I made this decision. When it's B2B and one person in HR, the CEO or, the head of sales says, all right, I want my team of 20 people in this room. They're dragging their feet. This is stupid. What am I doing here? What? So when it's been imposed on you to come to a pitch lab, I have to work 3 times as hard up front to win them over, show them value. Most of the time I do. But man, at the end of those, I'm like, whoo, I am exhausted. Like, that was really, really hard and uphill battle to get everybody. So it's interesting. I would still take a B2B. I would still take working with businesses over,
It's because it pays the bills better.
And I'll be straight with you. And I think any comedy producer or promoter can tell you, it wears on you to try to have to fill up show after show just on an individual one-on-one. It is just, it's tiring me out. You got Meetup, you got Eventbrite, you got Twitter, you got Facebook, paid ad. I mean, there's a lot of avenues. It's not cheap. It's not easy. Your list gets fatigued pretty quick and it just becomes exhausting. And I just, at this point, I think I'm opening up too much here. I'm getting a little, like, I need to throttle back.
I understand that. I actually hate promoting.
Do you really?
Ugh. I want to create products. I don't want to promote them.
How about your game show? Was it hard to fill? Did you paper the room? Was it easy?
In Boulder, I can fill the room.
Awesome.
But outside of Boulder, it becomes very, I did one in LA and it was hard. I mean, there's just so much competition for entertainment in that town. Oh, shoot. I have one last question, then I promise we're moving on. This is about promotion, and it's about that idea of people going back. When someone leaves the Pitch Lab, do they have something in their hand?
I have it's not as fancy as yours, but I do have a digital PDF with the takeaways. So it's bullet points going through stage fright, best practices, voice, presence, move
But
with
it's
purpose.
digital. It's not a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's a
you give
PDF,
them.
right? No, and I liked what you did. I kept it. It's actually in my bag. I kept it. I was like, that is a good idea. And I never asked people to write anything down. Nancy Norton, who is also a fantastic podcast on your show.
I think number 5. She was, I think, guest 5.
She gave me an awesome idea that I'm doing too many comedy karaoke lines on the same paper. I should do one comedy karaoke line on the paper, and then on the back should be like what yours
that's
is.
clever.
And that was Nancy's idea. I was like, that's really good, Nancy. And then I never did it because I just
You have
print these at my
1,000
house.
things
Yeah,
to
I was
do.
gonna say because that's like, but I should. And I was really impressed with yours. But no, that's one thing I want to do. And Nancy's idea, like that makes perfect sense. Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah, she's great. So I have all these new questions. So I'm afraid that you're already going to answer this question with Pitch Lab. So I'm not going to let you answer it with Pitch Lab. So I want you to tell me about a time that you sought a bigger opportunity. So either like literally or figuratively. You know, you're living your life and you go, oh, there can be more. I can do more. I can do this different. Something where you're like, you went and reached and stretched for a bigger opportunity.
Okay, so I'm not going to use Pitch Lab.
You can't use Pitch Lab.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
Because that's an obvious one.
But it's so it's going to be close. And I think we talked about this last time we were hanging out after your last workshop. The last full-time job I had, I was 4 years as a VP of business development at a digital agency, right? A professional services company. In 4 years, I had 5 different bosses.
That's not good.
No, and I was never looked at as like, I'm the guy. And the last boss, I learned a lot from him. I liked him a lot, but I said, this is it. I'm done. I compare it to, do you ever remember a point in your life when you were growing up and you lived with your friends a lot because you were just out of, maybe just out of school, just out of the dorms. I'm going to roommate with my friends to keep the call. And then there was a certain point in your life that you're like, I cannot live with a roommate anymore.
I need my own place.
I need my own place. I can't get out of my, we're done. That's something snapped like that in my professional, let's go back to sales in my career, where I said, I cannot listen to someone else tell me how to do this at 40. And I made the leap to, there's so many, because it was an expensive agency. We had a very sophisticated approach. Guys were $200 an hour. So you had to be 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion company to really see value from us. And I said, there's so many smaller opportunities where I know I can provide value. I know I can do this. And so I jumped for, I'm done and I'm going to spin out. And that was the genesis of me being a sales consultant that really helps growth stage companies and startups have a sales approach that's, predictable, repeatable, scalable. But that was it. That was the larger opportunity to say, if I don't jump now, I'm never going to jump.
It's going to be too late.
I'm going to be a sales guy working with for a budget and commission for the rest of my life.
Yeah. This idea of, this world of sales is so fascinating. Like this idea of having, you have your goals for the year and it's very carrots and sticks kind of world. Obviously, like the best salespeople don't have to worry about that as much, but it probably still.
We could talk. I would love to. Okay. So here's my philosophy on that. When you're a CEO and you say, I want to make 20 million in sales this year. So I'm going to hire 5 salespeople and each of you get a $4 million budget. Go sell. That makes no sense. It has to be based on a funnel. It has to be based on how many impressions can we get? What kind of marketing can we do? What will convert into first meetings? Some type of funnel has to take place. Now, I'm not saying that a salesperson doesn't have the onus to fill up their own funnel. But you cannot give a great salesperson 100% of the onus to go find 100% of their leads and expect them to magically hit goals. There has to be some type of gravitational pull from the organization, from the marketing system, some type of inbound leads to also complement that to say, yeah, I think we can get to 20 million based on the leads we have coming in, based on this and that. Not, I'm just going to divvy it up and this is the number and go at it. Nothing takes the soul and the heart away from a salesperson than being handed a budget they didn't agree on. There's no data attached and they didn't mutually agree on it. I think I just said that twice. That's how important that is. But you need to mutually agree upon it and you need to see how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
It's demoralizing. And I don't, anyway, I could keep going.
So what you just described is the famous scene with Alec Baldwin from Glengarry Glen Ross, where you're the guys who are saying the leads are shit. and he's screaming at them, be a closer.
But that belongs in the 80s. It's that mentality of sales is dead.
Yeah.
And if people are still alive and selling it, they don't have any employee retention. They don't have any good client retention.
And the best salespeople are going to leave.
That's it. Yeah. It literally doesn't exist. It's fun to look at a meme. It's fun to joke around about it. It's fun to slap your friend's coffee out of his hand and say, hey, in my honest opinion, it does not exist anymore. It's dead. It's 100% dead.
So you as a sales consultant, are you focused on helping get the systems in place?
You got it. But I am bottom of the funnel. So meaning if you're looking at the full funnel, the top of the funnel is marketing, the bottom of the funnel is sales. Right. I specialize in not the inbound and the outbound, not filling up the top of the funnel. But once one of those people said, I've read the blogs, I've downloaded the white papers, or I've gotten a cold call, I have a need, let's talk.
Okay.
Boom.
And it gets handed over.
You got it.
Yes.
So first discovery, second discovery, what goes in the pitch, what happens internally, especially in professional services with custom bids, custom investment estimates. Then once you've pitched, how do you move to contract and how do you close it? That bottom half, not only do I talk and help clients set up the approach, which is a value-based approach with a discovery framework, making sure you're asking the right questions up front, but what's the sales process to get through? And then I also believe in specialization of roles, which comes back to Pitch Lab and authenticity. This is another one of my authenticity things. So when I coach like a salesperson and he's talking about it, he or she is talking about a technology they don't understand. They've got a bunch of ums and ahs. Their body language is horrible. Everything is awful. And then I say, stop. Tell me a story about your favorite slice of pizza. Tell me a story about your favorite childhood memory. Tell me a story the last time your dog made you laugh. Uh-huh. Okay, all of a sudden, the body language is there. The ums and ahs are gone. So if you take this concept of authenticity, make sure the salesperson understands the business, understands business acumen, understands how to make a connection, and understands how to move them through the sales process. And then give me a subject matter expert that can talk about the case studies, that could talk about the technology. So you turn it into a team sell.
Right.
So everybody's authentic. The really smart SME, the tech guy, isn't responsible for, okay, the next step is a contract.
Yeah, then they don't say, let me turn this over to Jane. She'll take care of this.
You got it.
Yeah.
So the smart guy comes in, demonstrates the value, talks authentically because they're in it every day. The sales guy's like, this is my team. They're talking to it. And then the sales guy can be, guy or gal, salesperson can be what they're best at. And that a lot of my CEOs don't understand that. So my CEO in a small startup to growth stage company, they have it all. They're charismatic. They intuitively know how to sell. They obviously have intimate understanding of the product. They're able to kill it. Well, I want to stop selling. I can't find a salesperson. Well, of course you can't find a salesperson to do what you do. It needs to turn into a team sell. That sounds simple. That's very complicated.
Yeah, that becomes hard to do because now you have team, now you have people, and they have to
Are
work
they billable?
together.
Are they non-billable? Who do you use when?
Yeah, it's about systems.
You got it.
Yeah, I think this stuff is super fascinating. Okay, so you're getting up early in the morning these days.
5:30. That is when my alarm goes off.
Your alarm goes off. Are you hitting snooze?
Sometimes. Okay. I will not. I am not going to lie on this show. Yeah, and some days the night before I'm like, forget it, and I'll sleep until like 6:30
because just for your health.
I know when my body's like, all right, we're done. Especially when I'm doing a lot of workshops at night. Like, so this week I did one Tuesday night, one Thursday night. Mm-hmm. I got some good wind in my sails. I was excited about this. So I still woke up early, but I owe my body some time to catch up.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting idea. I'm puzzling over I'm having so many different insights. And I think part of the notion is this idea that there's very few one size fits all lessons or pieces of advice. So like this kind of get up early in the morning thing. Right. So, you listen to these Navy SEALs turned consultants. You should be getting up at 4:30 in the morning. Right. I'm an early riser. This has come up in a previous pod with my buddy Darwin Metzger. So Darwin's he's a late night person. He's an owl and I'm a lark, which makes it a little bit difficult for us to be friends because it feels like we're only awake for the same time for like 8 hours a day.
Nice.
Like when I was in Australia and he was at home, we were on the perfect time schedule because we'd both be up at exactly the same times. I mean, I generally believe early in the day is is you should be doing your most important work. You should be doing the work that requires thinking, creativity, problem solving, and so on before you sort of lose steam, which is sort of, and then you transition into more shallower work, into more pleasant, fun things to do. You end your day on a high note rather than on a work note kind of thing.
And do you exercise in the morning or later in the day usually?
Do I? Yeah. I try to exercise before a meal. So either I'll exercise at 10:30, 11. Again, I'm getting, if you're going to exercise at 10:30, I'm up at 6 and working, so I've already put a half day in. Or I'm exercising at 4:30. Those are the ideal times for me.
Awesome.
I use the late morning one to break up the day and to refresh myself. I kind of like the 4:30 one because if I'm up and working at 6, like I've gotten really good work done, and that becomes a reward. I'm a weirdo. I like working out, and it becomes a reward, and then transitions into dinner, and then it transitions into either fun or sort of lighter creative work, reading and so on. So this idea of you hitting your snooze button, I think, is an interesting one, and so the Navy SEALs are like, you wimp, you're never going to be successful. But I actually don't believe that. So if you think about it, there's basically two types of people in the work world. There's the people who aren't working enough, and then the people who are working too much.
I like that. So
depending on whether you work too much or you don't work enough, then the advice is different. Right? So there's all this advice about like, be lazy and, like go for walks and all this kind of stuff. And if you work a lot, if you're overworking, then absolutely you need to take a nap and hit the snooze button a little bit and take care of your body and your soul and your mind.
That's for you, Elon Musk, if you're listening.
Yeah, and exactly, right? Because you are going to be less effective. You're going to enjoy the work, less. You're going to be less creative. You're going to get stuff done still, but it's just, you're not a machine. But there's a whole group of other people out there who, look, we all have willpower problems. It's just the people who are good at it has found a way to find joy in the work and create habits that make it natural. And you just have to build habits to help give yourself a break. But for a lot of people, it's just like, it's called work for a reason. Yeah. And so those folks, they don't need the be lazy, take long walks. They need you need to get up and get on a schedule and make this a practice that becomes regular enough that then you can accomplish the things. Because really, work should serve you, right? It should serve you in the sense that it provides you resources to live a safe, secure life. And it should, in the ideal way, it should be something that doesn't feel like work. That it's something that you can, like the server who can find a way to make their shift just challenging enough that the time goes by quickly and that they feel like a sense of satisfaction. Like I did a good job and I exercised some muscles besides my biceps carrying trays.
Perfectly articulated.
Yeah. So that's why, to me, when you say you hit snooze, because I know you and I know how you are, that to me is actually a victory. Or you going, you know what, I'm going to set my alarm for 6:30.
Taking care of myself.
Or tomorrow, I'm not going to set my alarm and I let my body tell me when I should do this. But the key is to know which of those people are you, and then to seek out the solutions that are right for that. And oftentimes, sometimes it's the time of life that you're in. When I was a grad student, because not every hour, one hour of my life as a graduate student was so much more important to my career than 1 hour of my life now.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Keep
going with that. I want to hear more.
Well, because at least in the world of academia, you have these benchmarks. The way I think of it is this: you get on a train, right? So the train starts earlier than you think it does. It starts basically as an undergrad. And, there's these stops along the way. Okay. And this is a different kind of train. The conductor can decide to kick you off at different stops.
That is a different type of transportation.
And so you're on this train, and if you take care of business before you get to the first stop, you stay on it, right? You get the grades and the GRE score, and you get into a program.
Got it.
Right. Then the next stop, right? Your first year paper, then your second year paper, then your dissertation, then the job market, then tenure, and so on. And so the time on the train early is more important than the time on the train later, because you can get off the train as you like later and fuss around and then get back on it and so on. But if you it's a crap analogy.
No, I almost look at it as like a credit. Like I got the credit from that whatever, that TV show. So if I get on again, great. If I don't, it's already like I've already passed that benchmark is how I'm looking at what you're saying.
And the problem with academia is you can't go back. You don't get many second chances.
I didn't know that.
And so, I mean, you get some, there are some, but there's not as many as you would like.
Of course.
In that way. So, but what this opens up is that you don't have to grind as much, and you can then become, the idea behind tenure is that you can take these moonshots and you can do things that are different, and you can do things that are risky. Cool. And so on. And so early in your career, it's hard to do that. Later in the career, it's easier to do that. But actually to do moonshots and to do things that are risky and so on often take having more time and space to think about things differently.
Sure.
And meander and work on things I regularly work on stuff and then just throw it aside. And that would have felt like a monumental waste of time as a graduate student or as an assistant professor. But now it's actually would be a monumental waste of time to keep working on it.
There you go. What did Seth Godin? He did The Dip, When to Quit, When to Stick with It.
Yes.
That was an easy book. I flew right through that. But yes. Knowing when to quit. I like that.
Yeah, he's actually in a pile of books I just got here.
I like
Duck book.
I know he's maybe too mainstream for some, but he gets me fired up. I still like him.
Yeah, he's a pro.
I like him.
I'm not sure. It's funny you mentioned the dip because I don't know if the scientific evidence supports the dip.
But he's a great writer, and I believe it. I don't want to hear about it.
Well, I think the message is it doesn't matter whether there's a dip or not. What matters is the idea that have you given this enough time? So in marketing, the idea essentially is that adoption is nonlinear.
Okay.
So it's often slow, it's very flat, and then it accelerates, and then it flattens again.
Interesting.
And so there's a bunch of ideas about this, like, there's this idea of this tech chasm that happens that especially with technology, that flat part of adoption, it can be unusually big. And the problem with that is companies go out of business because they run out of money.
Got it.
They don't last long enough.
No runway
to be to get the acceleration that's there. And so in that sense, I think Godin's right. He recognizes that improving or success is nonlinear, and sometimes people could give up. The problem with that is that most people should give up.
Right? Well, he was also say when you know you can't be the best is also another time, I believe, or maybe I made that up.
Oh,
but if you can be the best, don't give up. But if you know this is just, I'm never going to be the best.
I'm going to be a follower, and I have to compete on price.
Can I? And then on your moonshots, I just wanted to ask. Yeah. You said you're a runner, and then you said you take walks a lot of times. Do you ever, like the stuff that you picked up and then put down, does it ever just just hit you in your run time or in your walk time? Yeah.
So
how does that, I just want to hear when does that hit you when you purposefully remove yourself, especially running? And I'm drawing a parallel to myself. Mm-hmm. Some of my best ideas are like,
I know I've become like really weird about disconnecting myself. So
how recently?
It's been a slow process. So I have an ex who runs, and she had mentioned that she runs long distances, and she runs without headphones. And I was like, really? Yeah. And I was like, well, I'll try that. And it was like, it's hard, right? Because running is hard. And so the music is nice because it lifts you up and it, helps you with your pace and so on.
Scientifically, it really works. Scientifically, music will help your pace.
No doubt.
And help your strength. Scientifically, I read that, and I also believe that. So yes.
Yeah. And if I was doing if I'm doing like a really hard, like sprint work, I go out to there's a field near my house, and I go out and I do like And like the other day, my back is killing me. And so I did this like light workout. And so it was like 100 rope skips, a 50-yard sprint, walk back, 10 push-ups, nice. 10 times, right? Yeah, so that's it was okay on my back, but I had music going during that. And I think it would have been foolish to not have music going because it just makes the experience much better.
Did you hurt your back, by the way, or is it just because you're tall?
It.
Okay.
I used to have.
I heard tall people have back problems. And guess what? As being a guy that's like 5'9" with shoes on, I don't feel bad for that.
I used to have a chronic back problem, and I fixed it.
Got it.
By the way, if anybody has chronic back problems, you should send me an email. I'll email you how I fixed it. This was just I just heard it working out actually. Okay. But there's a trail run near my house in Boulder, which it might be my favorite thing about Boulder right now.
Cool.
And it's a hard run, but it's not devastating. And I do that I try to do it once a week, and I do it without headphones. Nice. I do it without water. I do it very Spartan.
Okay.
And I now consider that a compliment to my work.
There you go.
It's so, I regularly sometimes I come off the hill with just like a list of things that I just need to take care of. Sure. Sometimes I come off the hill with like profound ideas. Awesome. And I count them out on my fingers while I run.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't forget them.
You're now running with a trapper keeper and pens.
I mean, I don't know a good solution for it because
I don't either.
If I brought a pen and paper, I would honestly stop and write things down.
I wonder.
I've thought about bringing a voice recorder.
There you go. Like a little pen or
something that's light that I could do.
That's interesting.
I don't want to bring my phone because I'll be tempted to do stuff.
Totally
with
agree.
It. So, but it's a practice that I have had to cultivate, and now I love it. You know, I don't always think about work. I sometimes think about other things, but again, I need to be doing a lot of hard work for that time to get ideas. If I was playing video games all day,
right,
and then I went on that run, I would just think about video games.
That's right.
So in that way. Okay, so we were over as usual, but I want to ask you, what are you reading, watching, listening to that really stands out? Like not run-of-the-mill good, but like you just go. So you mentioned Jiro already.
Yep.
Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Why am I not going to remember his name? Ryan, The Ego is the Enemy.
Oh, yes. Ryan Holiday.
I have a real appreciation for that book.
So what is the thesis of that book?
So he uses short stories like Bill Belichick, General Sherman, all kinds of short stories about how people did what was hard, did the grunt work that others didn't want to do, and became successful. And it's not just a blog post like, do what's hard, take this grunt work off your boss's place. I mean, he's actually using awesome examples. You could tell he lives on a farm, from what I understand. The guy lives on a farm, reads 4 books a day, takes notes about it, and then turns them into these amazing books. That's all he does with his life. God bless him. I'm jealous, but he's great at it. So the ego is the enemy is one.
And so the idea essentially is don't think that you're too important. This is beneath you.
Got it. And look at all these people. And what you said, I remember you talking to me saying, first you're a comedian, then you're an actor, then you're a director, then and how things build on itself. So even these mundane, so like, for example, we talked about waiting tables. Waiting tables was just part of my journey to be better at sales, to be able to deal with people, to go on to do.
You needed to wait tables to be a good salesperson.
But he's telling awesome little stories in it.
So is this like a subtle dig at the critiques of millennials these days who want to be?
He's young. He might be a millennial. I don't know. It could be. And then the other one so I was never totally into Letterman until the end of his career.
Okay.
I picked up Letterman's biography.
I think biographies are usually better than autobiographies.
Yes, The Last Giant of Late Night. And he has taught me, and you would actually like it because he has Letterman's lessons that translate to business.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's really interesting to see how he was always the anti-comic. So he was telling jokes, but not believing in his jokes. He was interviewing guests and thinking they were full of BS, but that became his character. And it's a new perspective on comedy for me that I never really considered. But then reading that, I'm a little over halfway through. Very interesting because that was I mean, I was born in 76, so I was around, but I wasn't staying up at 11 o'clock at night and DVR didn't exist. Like, you get my point. So it's interesting to take a peek back, even though he's still relevant to me. So those are the two right now that I'm reading. Podcasts I can't get enough of for whatever reason. And then I watch a lot of junk TV with my wife because we enjoy it. So I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Jay, I knew this would be fun. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you for having me. Great seeing you.
Great. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw